In this interview and presentation, we will meet up with Marcina Layton. She is an ordinary mom with ordinary children ranging from age 21 down to 5. She has homeschooled them over 12 years, and recently she started Love is Homegrown to give parents tools, resources, support, and encouragement for facilitating heart-based learning at home. Especially important to her is sharing the mindset that parents are the curators of their children's education, the resource facilitators and mentors. Let's welcome Marcina Layton. Thank you so much, Marcina, for joining me today on this interview and presentation. You have a presentation for our viewers as well. So I want to start by asking you, you have 4 kids and you've been homeschooling them. So why did you start homeschooling them?
First of all, we actually have 7 kids, but 3 of them are already graduated. So we have in the home who are still homeschooling. So we did have 7 total. When we started homeschooling, we had 5. So I've had 2 since then. We started about 12 years ago. And I had always had that in the back of my mind that I wanted to homeschool because I was homeschooled off and on as a child. So my mother was a true pioneer back in the days before the internet. And homeschooling, I don't know how she did that because she couldn't gather people easily and field trips and co-ops, and she kind of was on her own a lot. And it was back when homeschooling was weird. It was really weird to homeschool. And I had so many people I remember growing up and asking all the time, you're homeschooled, but you're smart. Or you're homeschooled, but you're so normal. I just had to laugh, and you kind of develop a thick skin and kind of a little inner rebel and say, yep, yes, we do. But I loved the fact that we could, I could go at my own pace. I loved school. I loved to learn. I was very academically minded, so I could read and read and read, and I could just go as fast as I wanted to. And I also loved that we had time as a family, more time than we would have. I was in public school part-time. It was probably like the middle, like upper elementary, middle school, and then a little bit into high school that I was in public school. So I could see going in and out of public school and homeschool. First of all, it did not ruin me. I'm so worried about that. I learned that learning was up to me and that I would get out of it what I put into it. And so that was a huge blessing, I feel, because it wasn't dependent on where I was, whether I was in public school or at home. It was dependent on me. And I love to learn, and I still love to learn. It's one of my favorite things about homeschooling my kids is I'm learning with them. I've learned more in the last 12 years of homeschooling than I did in the first 12 years of school as a child. So it's just something that I have always wanted to give to my children, the opportunity to have a say in their own education and to learn what they wanted to learn, to have more time to develop their talents. And because it doesn't take as long to homeschool. I mean, you can kind of zip through your schoolwork and then you can be off doing your unique talents and things that you want to develop. So I wanted that for my kids. And I even told my future husband, it was like, you got to be okay with this because I want to homeschool. So the thing is that my oldest daughter came with a severe speech delay. So she wasn't even saying, she was very verbal, but it was all garbled in kind of her own language. And she wasn't really like saying full sentences we could understand until about 5 years old. So her being my oldest, and there weren't a lot of other kids in the home. And then I had friends who were in special education and like, yeah, she really needs some speech therapy. So we got her into the public school, preschool, and then kindergarten, and first, second, third, fourth grade, all the way up. She had wonderful teachers, wonderful therapists, and they were just amazing with her. And that's what she needed. So even though it wasn't my plan for her, it was what she needed. So you got to change, you got to adapt. And it was great for her. So That's why we didn't start out homeschooling, was because of that. But again, that's what she needed, so we just roll with that. And by the time she was in 5th grade, she was doing so well, and the teachers, when I met with them, were like, we really don't have a lot left to work with her except for these couple things. I was like, okay, that I can do. I can handle those few things. And we had, at the time, 5 kids. My youngest was 2. And so I actually had a friend who, about that time that we were finding that out about my daughter, about how well she was doing, she was like, hey, have you ever thought of homeschooling? I want to homeschool. I was like, what? Yes, I've always wanted to. We had kids of similar ages. And so we kind of just decided to do it together, which helps so much to have people to do it with, whether it's, in your local group of friends or church, or even just online groups and co-ops. Like, it really helps to have other people that with you, and that helped me be brave and take that leap. But my husband and I talked and prayed about it, and I did a ton of research. So much research. I'm finding the perfect curriculum and the perfect way to homeschool and all the different methods. And so yeah, it was overwhelming but exciting to start. But I did a lot of things wrong at the beginning. I say wrong, I mean, my kids aren't ruined, but I made them more difficult than they needed to be. So I'm trying to pass that on to other moms, that we don't have to find the perfect thing. We don't have to worry about covering every single topic. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves that is unnecessary. So I want to share that and pass that along, because I learned that the hard way. So anyway, it's been great. It's been wonderful. The last 12 years have been lots of ups and downs, and we do have a few kids that have dyslexia and auditory processing. Obviously my oldest, that was why she had the speech delay, was auditory processing disorder. I have a couple boys with dyslexia, and then I have other kids who are just on it. I mean, they almost taught themselves to read by the time they were like, they love school. School's super easy for them. They memorize easily. So I kind of have all over the spectrum of different talents and weaknesses and challenges. So we just have to be creative, and every child is different. But again, that's why there's no perfect curriculum, because even if you found one, it would work for that child, but not for that child.
Exactly.
So you have to learn and adapt, and it's been great. It's really been great.
Yeah, sounds like it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I know you have a presentation that you're going to show us your setup at home, how you do the homeschooling with your kids, and you're going to share with us, how you homeschool your kids as well. So I'm going to play that video for our viewers.
All right, I've been asked to share how we homeschool. So I'm going to share 5 of the best things that we have done. We've homeschooled for the last 12 years. We've been up and down and around and all over, and it's looked very different, but this is kind of how things look now, as I've learned a lot since I first started. So the very first thing, and probably the biggest thing that has made a difference in our homeschool, is the Well-Educated Heart. And this is a website, a podcast, a Facebook group, an app, and it's championed by Marlene Peterson, who is an absolute angel. She, over the last 10 years and beyond, has gathered a beautiful resource for families to use, all for free. Everything that she has freely given, which has been such a blessing. And she has gone through the stories available online, like archive.org and other places, and really cherry-picked the best of the best and gathered them together in what she calls libraries of hope. And that really functions just like a giant library of free but beautiful quality literature, full of stories that really make a difference in children's lives and in our lives too. As parents, there's over 4,000 stories that she has grouped into 14 or 15 different series. She keeps coming out with more. She has world history series, nature, American history. She has a whole series for mothers called the Mother's University, and that is kind of like a how-to and really what to focus on in different topics like science and math and history and music and art, and it's kind of like a how to teach, which is wonderful. She has a whole Catch the Vision course available on the website, and also a Take 5 audios section where she has like 5 minutes on different topics to kind of get you into the groove of incorporating the well-educated heart into your home. Just so many resources right at our fingertips, all for free. All of the books that she has compiled, she has online for free PDFs, or you can purchase the physical copy, but you don't have to. It's all available right there. And really, with the Well-Educated Heart website, you can homeschool all of your kids, K through 12, with just adding in a math program and maybe a little bit of extended like science labs and things for the older kids. But there's so much there. It is a treasure trove. She really is trying to bring back kind of like a renaissance of the heart-based education. This isn't totally new. People who know about Charlotte Mason method of homeschooling, Montessori, Waldorf schools will find familiar things because they were all heart educators. And Marlene has studied all of those and even more. Pestalozzi, there's many of them through the years who have really tried to focus on filling and warming and nurturing hearts first. That every child is born an individual and with a desire to learn, and that the best thing we can do is to help them fill up their hearts with good and beautiful things through music and art and poetry and stories that teach, and nature. Time in nature feeds the soul. Having your hands in the soil and seeing things grow and watching the seasons and the little critters here and there. It does so much for a child's soul. Just to spend time in nature and what they can observe teaches them so much. And then the power of stories. She talks a lot about this on her in her website, her podcast. And just to give you a glimpse of this, one of her books is, that might be backwards to you, Restoring the Art of Storytelling in the Home. Restoring the Art of Storytelling in the Home. And I just wanted to share this really quickly with you. This made such an impression on me the first time that I read it, and it just really proves the impact that story can have. And she says in here, this is Marlene writing, "Is storytelling worth the effort?" Margaret Eggleston, the first storyteller I encountered when I discovered the storytelling revival of 100 years ago, was once asked this question. She responded, of course, with a story. One day she told a story to a group of adolescent boys, among which was a hoodlum. She didn't think he was paying any attention to the story. It was a story of a young boy who had a job sweeping up a bank at closing time. As he went to empty one of the trash cans, he noticed a large roll of money that had accidentally been thrown away. As he held it in his hands, he thought how much this money would mean to his family. His father was a drunk who spent most of what he earned on drinking. The little bit of money this boy brought home went towards food for his little crippled sister and his mother, who was very ill. The doctor had told him that if he didn't find a way to get medicine for his mother and move her out to the country where she could get fresh air, she probably wouldn't live past the fall. He looked around and saw that no one had noticed him. So he slipped the money in his pants pocket and headed home. Along the way, the money felt heavier and heavier in his pocket. He moved it first to his outside jacket pocket and then to the inside pocket. But the closer he got to home, the heavier the money felt, until he at last realized he just couldn't keep the money. He headed back to the bank where a security guard let him in. He marched straight to the bank president's office, knocked on the door, walked in, and threw the money across the desk to the president, explaining how he had come by it. The president looked surprised. "Son," he said, "I know how much this money would mean to you and your mother. No one knew you had it. Why did you bring it back?" Without hesitating, the boy leaned across the desk and, looking straight into the eyes of the president, said, "Sir, as long as I live, I have to live with myself, and I don't want to live with a thief." That was the story. There had been no particular reaction to it, and the storyteller lost contact with this young man until years later when she received a letter from him. He was now a soldier fighting on the war front in France, and as she opened the letter, she read, "Years ago, on a wet and rainy day, when the ice was dangerous on the sidewalk, you came and told a story to a group of boys. I don't remember the details of the story, but I remember how it ended. As long as I live, I have to live with myself, and I don't want to live with a thief. That one story has kept me from lying and stealing and from being a coward. And here in France, it has kept me true to my manhood. I have a class here in the barracks. I know that may be hard to believe. And some of my men need that story. I want it for all of them. For all that I am, I owe to that one story, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Never underestimate the power of a story, for stories shape our lives. I love that and highly recommend this book. This is just one of the treasures that Marlene has on her website. And it really just, I can't describe how much this has meant to me. It resonates with my very soul and has been what I have wanted all of these years that I've been homeschooling. We've homeschooled for 12 years, so over almost 10 of them, I guess, was without the Well-Educated Heart. And then for the last 2 to 3 years, we've been using the Well-Educated Heart, and it has made a world of difference. My children are more engaged in their learning. It really feels like their hearts are more full and more open. And I know mine is, because I have learned so much right along with my children. And so as we've spent time in more time in nature, more time with beautiful stories that teach lessons, poetry. And then the other thing is just letting my kids lead out in what they want to learn. So having that choice of what to learn has made a huge difference. And one of the things that she gave on her website, a way that she thought up for families to actually utilize the library that she has available, she came up with a rotation schedule. So every month it will go through see if you can see this. It'll go through a American history topic, which you can skip if that doesn't matter to you, but there's a lot to be learned from those people. The world history and a nature topic. And then also you can go through the Mother's University also every month. And there is a whole series for each of these, along with a bunch of other series on the website. So that has been really great, because it's given a framework of something to work within with the perfect amount of structure, but allowing for choice. So I will show you a picture of what we do. So each month I will grab books off of our shelves or from the library and put them up on ledges so that their covers are facing out. And the kids, it's so much more enticing to grab a book that you can see the cover, and they can choose whatever they want to read from that, and they don't have to go find it in the bookcases. I've already pulled it out for them, like the librarian. And they have things to choose from within that. So if they wanted to, month one is like India and China and Japan, Polynesia, Scandinavia. They can choose whichever of those they want to learn about and grab those books. And then as they're reading through them in their individual time, they can come and talk to me about it. They can write things in their notebook, their journal, and what they want to remember. We can, at the end of the month, we've done times where we have like a family showcase. So if they want to do a hands-on project or make a PowerPoint presentation about what they've learned, or write a poem or make up a song. I have a daughter who's musical and has done that before. Whatever they want to do, something to showcase their learning. We've done that before. You can do that with friends. You can do that with other homeschoolers. You can do it with family, even extended family. If you're in public school or homeschool, it's still a fun way to share what you're learning. So that's a great way to have community involved and have the kids have a chance to showcase what they learn. Also, another idea is to do kind of like a book club thing at the end of the month, where we get together and have something fun to eat, and the kids share what they've loved about the books that they've read. So that's just been such a great way to really give them the choice in their education and share what they're learning with others, and to also record what they want to learn, so they can have notebooks full of wonderful and inspiring people that they've learned about, and places around the world. And it's such a great way to do that. So hopefully that's enough for you to get a kind of a taste of what the Well-Educated Heart is. But it's really a huge library full of stories. It's a philosophy and a way of doing homeschool that blends with really any kind of method that you're doing. Whatever other curriculum you're using, if you're doing classical homeschooling or unschooling or Charlotte Mason or whatever, you can pull in stories and things from the Well-Educated Heart, just like you would from a library, and it's all available for free. Or you could just go whole into Well-Educated Heart and just use that entirely as a resource. And really all they need is to be reading books. They can watch videos on YouTube or documentaries about that thing, and then record what they're learning and then talk and discuss about it, and you have a full curriculum right there for you. So you really don't have to spend a ton of money on curriculums. You could do it all entirely with the resources at Well-Educated Heart, or add Well-Educated Heart to whatever other curriculum you're using. So it's just been so wonderful, especially the philosophy and the support that Marlene has given to mothers and parents as they learn really what is important and why we are doing what we're doing. What does education actually look like? And that it should feed the soul and help children, nurture their love of learning and want to be lifelong learners, and then go out and change the world. So really make a difference with their individual gifts and talents. All right, so the second thing that we have absolutely loved in our homeschool is morning time. This we've done from the beginning, and it's looked different, and I have gone up and down in consistency through the years, but I will tell you that this has kind of been the foundation of our homeschool and a way that we pull in the Well-Educated Heart. So we have a morning basket, and there's so many homeschoolers who have really grasped this, and so many resources, great ideas online. PamBarnhill.com. She talks a lot about that. She has a whole podcast called Your Morning Basket, where she talks about different things you can have and ways that you can use this as a teaching tool in your home. It's kind of like a glorified devotional, if you've heard of that before, but it's a way that you can bring in things that you want to teach your children in a consistent way. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It can be an hour. It really can be totally customized to whatever you need in your family. So what we do with this is we have a few things that we do every day, and then we have things that we loop through. So we don't do everything every day because we don't have time for that. That would be like 3 hours of morning time. So if you've spent any time, hopefully you've heard of Sarah Mackenzie and Read Aloud Revival. Her website is wonderful too. She talks about loop scheduling and the importance of that. Also, her book, Teaching from Rest, is amazing. I recommend it all the time. And she goes through what loop scheduling looks like, but basically it just means that if I want to do the stories of paintings, this is from the Well-Educated Heart website, available for free in PDF, or I can order the book. If I want to do the story of paintings and artists, if I want to do great musicians, and then critical thinking, this is a great book for that, The Fallacy Detective. Character, I love the Character Education Hero series, and this really helps kids with conflict resolution, and it's really great. So we can work on that. Values, there's a whole book about stories that teach values. It's organized by obedience and honesty and compassion and things like that. We can loop that in. And nature study, I love this book. You could do an entire year of science nature study with just this book and YouTube videos and nature walks. Like, that's how easy this is. And then Exploring Nature with Children is an awesome resource also. It's like a seasonal walk through nature. She has a bunch of resources. She refers to this in here and other books. And so there's a lot of really great things you can pull in, but we wouldn't do all of these every day. So, we'll spend time to begin with. We'll sing a song and say a prayer, and we'll do poetry together. I talk about on my website how we do poetry. I also have some printables for young children doing poetry. I used to plan out exactly what poems we were going to do, and we learned them all together. And then this last year, my 17-year-old son was like, "Can we please do our own poems?" I was like, "Oh, why did I think of that?" So sure, let's do that. And they just have totally taken off with that. So everybody chooses their own poem. And then during circle time, morning time, we have a 5-minute timer, and we all just kind of sit and study individually our poem. And then we recite them, whatever we've got, a stanza or 2 or 3, and we recite them to each other. And we just do that every time. And so now they're learning not only one poem, they're kind of learning 5 poems. My daughter, who's really good at memorization, has everyone else's poems memorized by the time we get around. But it's been so great because I've watched my kids choose just really wonderful poems that they want to write on their heart. And like my son memorized Invictus and The Conqueror, and The Bridge Builder, just really inspiring poems. My daughter loved A Little Kingdom by Alcott and To the Man Who Fails. I think that was Waterhouse. Oh, my son loves Longfellow. I think he's one of my favorites too. He did The Day Is Done, which is really long, the longest he'd ever memorized. And he has dyslexia, and he still was able to memorize these poems, and that's such a blessing. And it's taken a lot of time and years to get here, but just so great. So poetry we do every day. We do scripture stories because that's important to our family. Then the rest of this we would loop through. So maybe one day we do paintings and critical thinking, and then the next day we would do musician and values, and the next day we would do nature and math or word play. So there's lots of fun things you can do for this. Like this is kind of like a Mad Libs thing. There's even an app for Mad Libs. There's an app for this one I've seen, Bedtime Math. It's just like a fun little quirky story and then a problem for younger up to older kids that has to do with that story. So there's just like fun little things to make math and words and language accessible. So lots of great ideas. Some people do Shakespeare, like you can really pull in anything you want. Plutarch's Lives, like the sky's the limit. Fairy tales, whatever you would like to do. So that's morning time. We pull that in. We do that every morning, most every morning. Again, we are not perfect, and there have been times where we don't get to morning time, and then that's okay, because with the loop schedule, you don't feel behind. You're not like, oh no, we missed the day we were supposed to do music. So I don't assign it to a certain day. It's just a loop. So we do music, and then the next time we do morning time, we do the next thing. So it frees you from feeling stressed out that you're behind, that you've missed things, because stuff happens. Like sometimes you have a really hard day and the kids are sick and you've got to, just really do the basics. So, whatever that looks like, no stress. So morning time, brilliant. Okay, the next thing that is so great, which we do right at the end of morning time in the flow of our day, would be Read Aloud. So I mentioned Read Aloud Revival, such a great resource. I love Reshelving Alexandria also. It's like having thousands of librarian friends to ask all of the questions you could ever imagine about books. It is amazing. I've loved it so much. I've learned so much about quality books and finding, these good old treasures. I buy used books all the time, like bookfinder.com is my best friend. It searches a bunch of different websites like eBay and Amazon and thrift books and everything all at once. So I hate spending or full price on anything if I can help it. So most of my library that I've been building over the last several years is used books, and it's been great. And we go to Goodwill sometimes and or order online, and so you really can do this very cheaply. There's also so many things available for free online. So again, there's a whole entire library at Well Educated Heart, and Libraries of Hope and the Forgotten Classics series, and there are free resources like archive.org, Gutenberg, Project Gutenberg, Google Books has started doing some. There's also like through your library Overdrive, some of them do that. Just check and see what resources you have to get ebooks for free. There's a lot of different ways to do that. It doesn't have to be that you have to buy the books. I know even though the libraries are kind of closed right now, there are other ways. There are also audiobooks available for free. LibriVox.com is one that we've used before. Audible has deals all the time. You don't have to be a member even. You can get like $1 book. Often there's a lot of websites. I think Read Aloud Revival has a page that is just Audible deals, so there's that too. So again, our job is to gather resources. So there's so much available online. You don't have to have a whole house full of books in order to homeschool. There's so much there for us. So Read Aloud has been so great. I totally 100% agree with Sarah McKenzie, who's the Read Aloud Revival. I love her podcast. This is one of her books, The Read Aloud Family, which is great. And then her book I've already mentioned, Teaching from Rest, has been wonderful. There is, some of our favorites have been Little House on the Prairie, The Secret Garden, Chronicles of Narnia, Charlotte's Web, The Hobbit, A Wrinkle in Time. I just read Echo, which was recommended by Sarah, a Read Aloud Revival, and it was great. I'm excited to share that with the kids. It was really good on audio because it has a musical element woven through it. This is probably one of our all-time favorite books. It is not just for little kids. Winnie the Pooh is incredible. We laugh so hard. It's just so clever and quirky and fun, and the little kids hear the cute story of friendship, and then the adults and the teenagers actually get the jokes. So bonus, my husband is the one that loves this and reads it to the kids. So yeah, it's been really, really great. But so many fun memories because we are doing that together. So great. Read aloud, awesome. If you do nothing else in the day except read aloud and maybe some math and being outside a little bit, that is a successful day. So there's so much you can do just with read aloud. The next thing I would say that has been super influential in the way that we homeschool, especially having 7 kids and all on different levels, is that we do as much together as a family as we can. So I call this family style learning. So if we can do history and science and geography and then all the stuff we're doing in our morning basket and morning time, and that conserves my resource. You know, I am a resource of having to go around and teach everybody. And so for history, for instance, if I had my high schoolers on ancient history and my little kids on American history and, you know, the in-between on medieval times or whatever, that's so spread out and everywhere. And so that's not how I want to do things. It's super stressful to have to be in so many places and so many times in different books, and you don't have that unified experience. So family style learning has been so great because we can discuss together. We can be reading books about the same kind of time period, but on different levels. So simplified, like Childhood of Famous Americans for the younger kids, up to like landmarks and Western biographies for the high schoolers, and be learning about people of the times and share, but still have a cohesive experience. We can do family movie nights. We can watch The Greatest Hour about Churchill. We can watch Midway. We were just doing World War II movies, so that's why those came to mind. But we can do field trips together about that thing and topic. And, you know, for science, we can go to the science center and really focus on like the physics of section of it, because we're all learning about that, or the weather part of it, or, you know, we can go on a bird watching expedition to the riparian preserve, and because we're all studying that kind of same thing together as a unifying experience. So family style learning has been so great. So the main topics that we do that with are history, and before I found Well Educated Heart, we were using The Good and the Beautiful. I really love this approach because she doesn't do like ancient history for the whole year. We started out doing that because there's a lot of homeschoolers that do, you know, like a 4-year history rotation, so ancient, middle, American, modern. And we got through a couple years of that, and the kids were just so done having ancient history last all year. Their desire was not that long. So I love that her plan here is to do 4 units each year and have them be on the different time periods. So she has Ancient History Unit 1, Middle Ages Unit 2, and then she'll have Unit 3 be the American history, and then Unit 4 is Modern History. So I love that because it moves you through. So this is what we were using before the Well Educated Heart and the rotation schedule. So now I kind of just weave them together. I mostly just follow the plan of the rotation schedule from the Well Educated Heart and then pull in the lessons and resources from The Good and the Beautiful. You could do it the other way around though. You could follow this plan and then pull stories from the Well Educated Heart. So again, it's super versatile. But I really like this because it has an audio, like a dramatized story element. It has books and map work and, you know, recommendations for read alouds, and it's just really well laid out. It is Christian, so that is something to consider if you're a secular family. This might not work for you, though I have heard on a Facebook group that there have been secular families that just kind of skip over that part and keep going. It's non-denominational Christian, and even, you know, I've heard of Jewish people using it, so it's really well written from a huge team of collaborators to write the curriculum. So it's one of the best that I found. And another thing that I love about it is that she has student explorers. So you're doing your family style lesson together, and then they have things to go off and study on their own level. So you can like hand a 2nd grader his map work and, you know, a worksheet if they like worksheets. Some of my kids hate them, so I don't. And you can hand the high schooler their packet of things to look up, and it kind of extends the learning, but on their own level. So brilliant. So I search for curriculums that do that family style learning, and I have. And so on my website, I have a whole page of different things that we've found through the years that really allow you to do family style. Guest Hollow has been one of those. A Gentle Feast And I forgot to talk about this in morning time, but she does have a morning time option if you wanted like the art and the poetry and things all lined out for you. But she does she has 4 different years, and for the entire year plan is like a little over $100, and she has all of the resources and all of the planned out what to do as a family, what each age group is going to go off and do on their own. So she has scheduled everything out, and it's super easy to tweak and add your own books. So this is an option if you're wanting kind of a curriculum that will just tell me what to do. But it's still very literature based, and the kids can still choose what they'd like to do and when, and you just kind of plug it in or rearrange things. So it's still customizable. So this is another really great option. We used this last year, which was such a blessing. I just had this feeling like I really needed some more super structure to the way we were doing things, and I'm so glad that I followed through with that. And I found A Gentle Feast still pulled things from the Well-Educated Heart, but I had this framework and structure, and it was such a blessing because that semester we were run through the ringer. Family life was a little bit disrupted. My parents moved in with this. We found out my dad had cancer. My daughter was leaving for a church mission to Portugal. My son needed major chest surgery. It was like one thing after another, then we moved. And so if I hadn't had A Gentle Feast to get us through all of that, and so we could just kind of be on autopilot, and it was all planned out already. So I know there's times in life where you don't want to do your own thing and you just want it to be all planned out. That is what I would recommend, would be A Gentle Feast, or piece together the things from the Good and the Beautiful would be the other thing. Otherwise, you really could do it all with just the Well-Educated Heart. Okay, so that's family style learning. Love it. I love how it builds relationship, connections with the kids, and that we are able to learn together. I love that. Okay, so really quick, last thing that we've done is planning. I am such a planner. I love to have a giant plan and everything planned to the T because I don't want to miss anything. I've learned to chill on that a little, but what I found that really works for us is to plan 6 weeks at a time. I used to plan out the entire year. It did not go well any of the times that I tried that because we had to assess and adjust, and I'd have to ditch my plan that I spent so many hours doing, or I would power through it even though it wasn't working because I had spent so many hours doing that plan, and neither one of those options goes very well. So I plan 6 weeks. I kind of have like a general idea of what I'd like to do in the year, and I've talked to the kids like, hey, what do you guys think you want to learn about? Do you want to do some chemistry this year? Do you want to do life science and biology? And kind of get some feedback from them and having a general idea of what I'd like to do. And then the Well-Educated Heart rotation plan obviously helps with that because you're looping around everything every year. So you can just pick and choose kind of what you'd like to do. But planning kind of 6 weeks at a time, and planning a couple field trips in there to do with our science or, the history that they'd like to do. The rotation plan is monthly, which I think would work really well if you had younger kids. My older kids tend to be more of like a 6 week kind of a thing to get through their longer books that they want to read. And so I found that that's kind of what our groove is. So, which is fine. Everybody finds their own groove. But what I really liked about the 6 weeks is it seems like the perfect amount of time to really try something out and give it a good try. And then take a week off, and because we homeschool, we can do that, and assess things. How's it going? What's working? What's not working? Ditch the stuff that's not. Get a different plan if I need to, or just add things in or take things out. It gives me the time to do that, and then I plan the next 6 weeks. And then I haven't invested all of these hours and hours into planning the whole year, and I'm able to more fit the needs of my children. So that has been really great. When we plan, we are focusing on our goals. I sit down with the kids, and they tell me what they would like to learn. So like, for instance, my daughter, this is my 15-year-old. So she has, I don't know if you can see that, but this is just kind of like her bookmark plan that she has for her individual work. So in our day, our flow would go, I spend time with the littles in the morning. We read and we kind of do crafts if they want to, or we'll go out and look for ants. My son was really into that. So kind of spending time with them in the morning, so they are seen and kind of get their cup filled up. And then the older kids are working on their individual work during that. And then we have morning time. We do read aloud at the end of that. If morning time goes a little long, we'll kind of bump read aloud to the end of the day, like before bed. Then we'll do our family style subject, which would be science or history or geography. And the things that we love and have used for that is all on my website on the resources page, so I won't spend more time talking about those. But with the schedule that she's doing her individual work, that would be like after our family style lesson, all of the kids split up into the different areas of the house. We don't have a homeschool room. I don't feel like we need a homeschool room because we start out here in the library in our front room for circle time. And after we're done, they want to go to their own little corners to do their online classes if they have them, the older kids. And some are at a computer desk or at a table or outside or on their bed or on a couch, wherever. And so in that individual work time is when my daughter would do this schedule. So she has, again, a daily section and then the loop section. So she spends, 4.5 to 5 hours and just gets done as much as she can and then loops around on her loop. So she wanted to learn things like, she chose to learn French. So we got her some resources for that. She wanted to learn about watercolor for art. She wanted to do a Brene Brown leadership book. So she's reading Rising Strong, which is wonderful. She wanted to learn about wilderness survival and natural health. So we got her books for that. If I can get them over here. So like here was one of the natural health ones we found for her. And if I didn't have all of these books or access to them, we could jump on YouTube and find resources there. We could watch documentaries. So they tell me what they want to learn. We work together to find them the resources to do that thing. And sometimes it's an online class. Sometimes it's a part-time class at the local school. One thing we've totally loved is masterclass.com for my high school kids. And this particular daughter is really into creative writing. And she was able to take a class from Margaret, oh gosh, I can't even remember her last name. She wrote A Handmaid's Tale. And then like Neil Gaiman has a class. There's cooking by Gordon Ramsay. There is environmental science by Jane Goodall. There's composing by Hans Zimmer. So these are like experts in their field teaching classes. And it has been awesome. And they do like a yearly subscription and you can take every class, any class, every class. And for the whole family, so I called them and they said that was fine. So we just paid for one and then everybody used it and they were totally fine with that. So I highly recommend that for high school and even like upper middle school if you've got a really motivated child. So anyway, they'll have their plan and every child has a plan and we've worked through that together to fit their goals. They also, I guess I should have shown you that. They all have some kind of a learning journal. I found this one on Amazon. It was super fun because it's like an adventure journal. And this one happens to be like a 3-ring binder. So they can put pages in there and they can keep track of the things that they learn and notebook that. And so that's been absolutely great. Marlene talks about that in the Well-Educated Heart. It can be just as simple as like a composition notebook or a spiral bound notebook or just a 3-ring loose leaf binder. But something that they can do, this one was my son's, that they can do to record what they're learning. So they tell me what they want to learn, we find the resources, and then they have some way to record it and then share it. And that really is what learning is. And that has been the greatest way and pattern that we have found for our homeschool. So while they are on their individual work portion of the day, I am rotating around working with them one-on-one if needed, especially the little kids as they're learning to read. We do math online, again, to conserve my time. We've done Dreambox, we've done CTC math. Teaching textbooks worked for the younger grades. I don't recommend it for pre-algebra and above because it was really confusing for my daughter. And even my husband, who loves math, couldn't figure out how to advise her on how they were trying to get her to do it. So that was when we switched to CTC math, but there's SACs in math. We're learning for the older kids, Learn Math Fast is what they're doing right now. So there's lots of options. And with language arts, again, I have all of the things that we have used and loved on my website. And so you can go there, loveishomegrown.com, and there's a whole list of things. And there's even more. I mean, I'm always finding new things. Like, I don't know everything. We're always finding new resources, and I just wanted to share what we have loved and what has worked. So that's kind of how we do our day and how we plan, and the things that have been super helpful for us in homeschooling. And so hopefully that is helpful to you.
What do you want homeschooling families to understand before they dive into homeschooling?
Okay, the first thing I would say is to make sure that you check what the legal homeschool requirements are for your area. In the United States, there's a website, it's hslda.org, and they're really great at keeping up to date requirements. And wherever you're at in the world, I'm sure they have requirements for how to legally homeschool. So just make sure you know what those are and that you are meeting them, because you must meet them. So that's my very first tip. And then I think I kind of mentioned this before, but reach out, find people around you online, Facebook groups. You know, there's like homeschooling with dyslexia groups. There's groups for everything under the sun that you can think of. You know, don't try to do it alone. You're not alone. And that's one of the reasons why I started my website, was just, you know, that feeling of community helps so much when we feel like we have mentors that we can lean on, people to ask questions. You know, we don't need to make it hard by trying to do it ourselves. So reach out and find parents, moms who, you know, have your same values and ideas and have the same goals for your children. And whether that's because you're homeschooling for a year and then plan on sending them back, still, like, just, you know, find that community. That would be my next thing to say. And then the other thing is, and I mentioned this before too, there is no holy grail of perfect curriculum. So don't waste time looking for it. Just, you know, the best that you know how, figure out how your kids like to learn. Are they visual? Do they like to be moving and doing things with their hands? Do they like auditory? You know, audiobooks. I have my kids who have dyslexia, audiobooks are like the best thing for them. And then my daughter that has auditory processing, that's like the worst thing for her. She needs a visual, she needs to read it, she needs to see it, or even like a video. You know, Magic School Bus and Leapfrog videos were so great for her when she was younger, because she could see the concepts. Mm-hmm. Just being observant and figuring out, you know, how do my kids like to learn? The best, I mean, you're not going to know that until you kind of get into it, but just the best guess that you can make, and then look for curriculums that, or resources that fill, you know, that need that your children have. And then take into account that you have needs as the parent. I don't like things that take a lot of like arts and craftsy prep. Like I don't want to do stuff and beads and glitter everywhere. That's not how I want to roll. So I like really easy open and go things. I've got 7 kids, so I've got to keep that into account, you know, and find something that's going to work for me as the parent. There are a lot of really great curriculums, but they take a lot of prep time. If I had only one child, that would be fine. But I have a lot of kids that I've got to find something that works for me too. So take into account you and your children, and then just pick something and jump in, and know that you do not have to spend a ton of money. Money doesn't equal quality. There are a lot of really great free resources out there. Mm-hmm. And I would save, you know, the money that you would spend on this beautiful like box that they send you from like a Becca or something that's really pricey to have. It's very tempting to have everything all set up and given to you, but you can, with just a little bit more effort, find, you know, things that are free or low cost, and then save that money for, you know, like math codes if you have a child that's struggling with math, or you know, finding a tutor and things. Or I wish that when I first started out, I just bought teacher's guides and curriculums, and I wish I had just bought books. Mm-hmm. You know, I wish I had started building my library. Now I've stopped buying teacher's guides and things, but I wish that I had, you know, science museum, what's the word? Not subscription, membership, you know, to science museum, or, you know, what have you, like experiences, books, art supplies, like those are things that you can save the money and spend on, instead of feeling like you have to have this gorgeous, wonderful, all laid out for your curriculum, because you really can kind of piece things together on your own. Like, just, I'll pull this out. Like if you wanted to do nature study, This like one book, it's Nature Anatomy. You could do an entire year of nature study with just this book and YouTube videos and nature walks and keeping a nature journal.
Nice.
Done. You know, it doesn't need to be super complicated. So that's something I would say. Do not waste time trying to look for the perfect curriculum because it doesn't exist.
Yes.
It really doesn't. And I have learned that the hard way. The other thing that I would say is that relish and cherish the time that you have together. You're here for connection and relationship just as much as learning. So you're still a family, and relationship matters. And it is a hard transition to be the teacher and the mom. I mean, that is a hard balance to keep. But relationship matters. And I've found a lot of things that I've tried to share on my website that have really helped keep that relationship intact, so that I'm not the, super get it done now kind of teacher mom.
Mm-hmm.
I can come alongside them and we can learn together, and they can kind of more direct their learning. And that really helps with relationship. With that time together though, you will find every single one of your weaknesses. It will come out as you're homeschooling. Your children will find their weaknesses because you're together. It's all day long. It's not easy. Absolutely not easy. And I don't want to rose color things. It is hard work, but the investment is worth it. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to face your weaknesses head on, but that's what life is for. We're here to learn. We're here to grow and, keep moving forward. So don't be afraid of finding weaknesses. We're here to learn and adapt and change and grow. So that's something I would say. And then just so many of the moms are so worried about ruining their children. And this, I know how you feel because I felt that way. Every homeschool parent feels that way. They don't want to do that. They don't want to do it wrong. They don't want to fail. And they don't want to, give them a lesser education than they could have somewhere else. And I would just say that you have to be patient with yourself, patient with your children, and know that you can do this. And given the right resources and the fact that you love them, you know them better than anyone else, you love them more than anyone else, you're going to move heaven and earth to give them what they need. And just let that, fuel your passion, desire to don't spend that energy on stressing about ruining them. Just be like, okay, I'm going to give this my all. And then just go forward and don't worry about ruining, because you're not going to ruin them. If you're engaged and working hard and finding resources, asking for help, you're going to be fine.
Yes.
So those are like the main things I would tell someone starting out.
Thank you. That is a lot. And thank you for saying that it's like sometimes people think it's easy. It's not. It's okay if it feels hard, right?
Totally fine if you're like, I am pulling my hair out and I want to cry. Like, you're going to have days like that. You're going to have days like that. And you just have to learn coping strategies. Like, sometimes it's okay to just totally ditch the schedule and we're going to go on a hike today because mom needs to be in nature and everybody needs to be physically, getting some of that angst out. That's okay. That's great. That's still education. It doesn't have to be one certain thing every day, and give yourself freedom to do what you need when you need it. So
exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that. So having the right mindset is important. We talked about some of it. You've already shared with us, right? It's a huge for somebody who's beginning this new journey, right? So what could you share with us some of your mindset that you have right now that you probably didn't have it in the beginning?
I have come so far from when I first started. I didn't have the best mindset coming into it. I was super worried about ruining my kids. Even though I wanted to homeschool, I was worried I wouldn't be good enough, and I wouldn't be able to do what my mom did back when she was pioneering through everything without the internet. I don't know how. And so every parent feels that, and you have to just move through that and know that it's not all up to you. Really, what education is kind of what I learned, what I said at the beginning. It's between the child and life. I mean, it's how they engage with life, and it's their choice to engage, their choice to learn. You cannot force learning. I don't know who said it, but somebody said that we're not here to fill a bucket, we're here to light a fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're not here to cram facts in their heads. We're here to help them learn how to learn and how to engage with their world and discover and keep learning. It's not about, knowing a certain amount of things and passing that test. And that may seem like the important thing at the moment. But if you're looking ahead to the why are we, what is education for? Like, what's the point? It's meant to add to our lives. It's meant to help us engage with the world and the people around us. It's meant to help us find our talents and how we can, make a difference in the world, and to be lifelong learners who, when they don't know something, they're like, okay, I can handle that. I'm going to go out and learn it. And so to keep the why in mind, I think makes such a big difference, and stop stressing so much about the daily how as much as if, and just knowing that if you're diligent and you keep working and you find a way, it's going to work out, and it's not all in your head. I think the biggest thing is that to understand that we are the curators of our children's education. We do not have to know it all. We do not have to do it all. We are just the resource facilitator. So we figure out where our children are, where they need to get to, and then how to get them there, and what tools and resources they need. And, I have kids with dyslexia and auditory processing, and I think it's Einstein that said that if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it's always stupid or something like that. And, if you have these things in your head of has to be done, and that pressure, and your child can't live up to that because of whatever their challenges are, I mean, that's not going to work.
No.
And so you have to know that there's so many different paths through education. There's so many different resources. We live in like the golden age of education. My mom all the time is just amazed. Like, my daughter wants to look at butterflies and see one breaking out of a chrysalis, and I can Google it and we can watch a YouTube video on that exact thing right now.
Yes.
The masterpieces of art through history, the composers and the great music of all time, like at our fingertips.
Yes.
And so there's so many different paths, so many different resources. And if our children need a tutor or need online classes or need another teacher besides mom, because again, that balance between teacher and mom is hard. And some kids don't learn well just from mom. And so they need an outside teacher, find them that. My kids have done part-time school. We're lucky that the schools around here will let them go and take part-time classes, so they can take ballroom dance or orchestra or PE, sports and things if they wanted to, photography class. Like, they can go do that part-time and then come back and do the rest at home. There are so many different, and not everybody has that option, but there are still so many options. You don't have to feel like you have to know everything and do everything. Like, I don't really super love math. I'm really glad that you're great at it. And that's the kind of thing, like, I can be like, hey, how about you help my child with that? So you don't have to love and know everything. You just need to gather the resources and the people who do and can help you mentor your children. So I think that is a super important thing to understand. That mindset will help so much. And then let me make sure I got everything else. I kind of mentioned this before, but no child is behind. They're just where they are. And so our job is to figure out where that is and then come alongside them and help them move forward. So there doesn't need to be that pressure of, they're behind. And I've seen a lot of moms who are now homeschooling and who are like, oh, wow, I had no idea that my son, who's been in public school this whole time, doesn't know all of these things I thought he knew. we can't put pressure on ourselves or our children. We just need to figure out how it is and where they want to be, and then how to help get them there. So, because every child is unique and has different challenges and different talents and their own path, and there's no wrong or right way. So, the other thing I would say is that every child comes with a delight for discovery. I love the younger ages. Like, it's one of my favorite things ever, because they're so excited about like a tiny little pill bug on the ground. Like, they could just sit there for hours and watch it and hold it. And they come with that passion for learning. And so our job is not to, like I said, cram facts into their head or feel like we have to give them a desire for learning. They came with it. We just need to nurture it and help it to continue to grow and not kill it. And a lot of times we kill it with, the drill and kill method. Just step back and let them do their thing, because as they, realize that, hey, if I want to know about something, I can go find out. I can go learn. Like, that's exciting. And that's where we want to help get them there, by providing that environment for them.
Yes. So beautifully said. So true. Like, even in math, like I never, like, it doesn't matter what age they are. And, some people say, if you're 13, you should know your grade 8 math or whatever, right? It doesn't mean that, right? It's just where they are. You meet them where they are. That's why curriculum, you can buy the fanciest curriculum, it won't fit, because it's designed on a general level, right? Yeah. So that's why homeschooling and unschooling, they work so well, because you can modify, you can individualize to your kids.
Totally.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about your other older kids. So when they transitioned from homeschooling into, like, did they go to college?
So my oldest went to Art Institute. So this is another reason why I was so she was the one who had speech delay and auditory processing. But because that kind of, what's the doorbell? That learning gate was kind of a little bit blocked. She was super gifted in the visual arts. And so finding that out was like, wow, like, she has such a gift. And she's been drawing and everything for years and years, always sketching. That's really how she would grab onto, like, if I was ever talking or reading aloud, she would need to be drawing so that she would grab onto what I'm saying, because she's just so visual. That's how her brain wants to function. So she went to Art Institute and loved it. They're actually, I think right now they're open. It's Milan Art Institute, and they have an online program. They're incredible, and they really helped her find her voice and her own way of doing things. And she has such beautiful art and is a professional artist now. So that was her path. And if I just thought she was behind and thought she wouldn't measure up and just kind of was discouraged with her auditory processing and kind of her rough road at the beginning, I mean, maybe we wouldn't have found out that she was so gifted, So you just, like you said, meet them where they are and figure out what their thing is, what lights them up, what can they do and offer the world. So so proud of her, and she's worked so hard to be where she's at. My second daughter, she actually is a really talented dancer, and when she was taking part-time classes in ballroom dance at the local school, she was like, Mom, I want to be on the dance team, and I think I just want to go to school full-time, to public school. And so she tried out for the dance team, ballroom dance, and made it. And so she went to 3 of the years of high school at the public school and had a blast dancing. I mean, she loved it. She was really good at it. And she couldn't get a diploma because where we're at, if you do homeschool, they don't give you credits towards the diploma if you're homeschooling.
Okay.
So she only got credits for the time that she was actually physically going to the public school. So she had about a year of credits to make up, but she decided, Mom, I want to go for my diploma and graduate with my friends. We're like, okay, that's gonna be a lot of work. You're gonna have to do 2 years in one. But that's what she wanted to do. And so she went for it and worked really, really hard, tons of homework, lots of extra, classes on the side online and things. And she did it, so she worked hard and she was able to get that diploma because that's what she wanted, not because I was pushing her or that she felt like she had to, but that's what she wanted to do. And she did. So once she graduated, she worked for a year and now she's on a church mission. So she's in Europe. Nice. And serving people and loving it. So when she comes back, she intends to go to college and she might dance again. She's not quite sure what she wants to do. But my third oldest, my son, so we have 2 girls and a boy, and he just barely graduated and we just sent him off to college. So he's just going to a community college that's about 3 hours away that my sister and I went to, and we have a bunch of family over there. So he's rooming with his cousin and super excited, has a job, he's going to work and go to college. So they've all had very different paths, and that's okay.
That's what makes it beautiful, right? Because you allowed them to discover themselves. Yes, it's so cool. It's so cool. So I know you shared about some of the most important lessons you learned over the years of, starting homeschooling. Is there anything else you want to add to that? I think the biggest one is don't go buying all these fancy curriculum thinking it's going to work. That's it. I got the curriculum now. We're ready to go. And that's it. It doesn't work like that. So
another thing that I think I've touched on a little bit, but just I have learned, and probably this is the most important thing, to let my kids lead out in their own education. And I kind of learned that the hard way. I'll tell just a short story. My second oldest, when she was about 12 or 13, decided she loved all things astronomy. She could not get enough. She found every book we had in the house and carried it around in a briefcase with a notebook. And every waking moment she had, she was reading and copying down and writing notes. And she'd come in and she'd be like, Mom, did you know about supernovas? And she'd tell me all about what she was learning. And I was like, oh, yay, that's so great. But I was doing biology that year because I had all planned out to the T. We were doing human body, we were doing plants, we were doing animals. And I had every week scheduled so I didn't miss anything. So I didn't have any gaps, and that they would get their biology year. And so, yay, you like astronomy. Well, we're not doing astronomy right now. We can do that next year, okay? We'll do that next year. And then by the time we got to next year, she kind of had already satiated that desire. And she was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. But I missed riding that wave with her. I missed really diving in. And would it have killed us if we had stopped our biology for 2 weeks or even a month and done astronomy? No. But I had a plan, and I had to stick to the plan. This was back when a couple years into when I had started. And she's fine. It didn't ruin her or anything. But I missed out on
learning
in that and learning that with her and seeing that delight and then encouraging it, because I was kind of like, oh, that's great. But I didn't dive into it with her. Mm-hmm. And that would have shown, that I really cared about what she cared about. So contrast that with now that I found the well-educated heart, which I will talk about in how we homeschool in the video. But now that I found that, and she talks so much about letting them lead out, letting them, have a say in what they want to learn. They need to learn science, great, but they can learn any kind of science that they want. They can go, the sky's the limit. And so
in any order too, right?
Right. And so I have really tried to kind of back off and stop trying to plan and force and cram facts in their head about what I think they should know. And I've really tried to back off and see where their interests take them. And it's been really beautiful to see, since I found the well-educated heart about 3 years ago, my younger kids, especially like my 8-year-old and my 13-year-old, they have really taken off. Like my 8-year-old is doing kind of the same thing my other daughter did, but he's doing it with ants, and he is fascinated with ants, and he's watched every YouTube video he can find on ants and read all the books, and he even saved up his money and bought a little ant habitat with the little tubes and everything in it. And June was the month that the queen ants are out and flying around, and he's like, we gotta find a queen ant. She's gonna be looking for a place to lay her eggs. So we would go outside and we would hunt for ants and couldn't find one. Finally found a queen ant, and it was a glorious day. They named her Empress, and she's now in her habitat, and she has laid eggs, and he's so excited. And because I've learned and I know better now, like I've been able to ride that wave with him. That's what we've done for science for him, has been all things ants and insects and kind of comparing and contrasting different kinds. And it's been great because we have that bond, and that, you know, it's increased our relationship because he sees that I value what he's interested in. And like I, you know, science, you can learn whatever you want. It doesn't need to be on my schedule. It can be on their schedule. So, and same kind of things have happened with my 13-year-old and my 5-year-old. Like I can see the difference with having so many kids, homeschooling before, and now homeschooling with this new way of doing things, and me kind of just backing off and getting out of the way and really helping them drive and own their own education has been so beautiful. And I found this quote that totally typifies what I want to say. I don't know exactly who said it. I think it is the author of The Little Prince, which he has a French name, which I can't even try to say. But he said something like, if you want to build a ship, don't hire men and gather wood and give orders. Teach them instead to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And I love that principle, because if we, you know, can get out of the way and back off and let them find the things that they want to learn and what they're excited about, that's really what learning is. That's what we do as adults. Somebody's not over us telling us everything we should be learning. We find something, oh, that's great, and we go off and we learn, and that's what lifelong learning is, and that is what our goal is for our children. So our success is not in whether we build the ship. It's whether we have created an environment where our children have that desire, and that desire is nurtured to want to build the ship, to want to go out into the vast and endless sea, and that they drive that process. And so that's something that I'm really striving for. And it's hard to remember, but it's so beautiful when we can see that in our, just those light bulb moments, and see our children's hearts and minds light up because they are engaged in their own learning.
Yeah. I want to share a story about my son. We're cleaning his Lego. He's been a big fan of Legos, right? He's 13 now, so he's growing out of Lego, and he has like 5 boxes, big containers of Legos, right? So we're like, okay, what are you gonna do with this, right? Like you can't just sit there for years to come. So we said, okay, and then his brother gave him an idea, like, you know, he actually sold his before like that. So he's now into selling them. He wants to sell them. So how do you sell them? Like, what should I do? And then one of the idea was, let's build it back into what it was. You know, that's going to take years to build all 5 boxes out, right? So then he's like, what if I put them into colors? Like I'll just sort them into colors, and then I'll just sell them by the color, the bags of colors, right? And then he's now, for the past 5 days, he's been at it. And today he asked me, when I go in, he's almost done. He's on his 5th box. He's done. I've not gone in to help him or tell him do it, nothing. I've just backed off and let it with him. Now he's finished almost, and he's asking me, can I go open a bank account? Because he's already planning to deposit the money, right? So the kids they just go about it, right? When I didn't tell him any of that stuff. He came up with it, and I'll bag it with colors, because then people who have easy time, you know, normally they want certain colors, he thinks. Anyway, that's his plan. So I just love how kids just go about doing that stuff. But when we stress out so much, right, as parents.
Yeah.
So we just need to give them space.
Trust the process and our children, and they'll get there.
Yeah, same with education. And then that's that motivation that everybody asks, how do I motivate my child?
Mhm.
Many times I've get asked that, right? Like they're not wanting to do math. Like for example, math, nobody's get excited about, right? Motivation for math. But that's why I say you can teach math anywhere and everywhere. Like, you can teach math with Lego if you want. The whole math, so many concepts could be taught through Legos, right? And while you're playing with your child, you can teach math. You don't have to just get a worksheet or buy a curriculum
Right. Right.
for it. So that's where the interest comes in, right? So what do they like to do? Find out. That's the motivation part. So I've been helping a lot of parents towards that, same as you have. Just sharing this, it's so powerful that, I mean, you can be in so much more peaceful at home and do homeschooling if you just get into that wavelength.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what you're enjoying now with your set.
Well, that's what I want to pass on to other moms. So maybe they can start here and go even farther.
Of course, yes.
Have to wade through all that stress that I went through at the beginning. But yeah, we're here to learn. And I'm
Yes.
right along with my kids. And I'm a normal mom and they're normal kids. And they actually thought it was pretty hilarious that I was going to be interviewed.
Oh, did you tell them I'm going to share some of your stories? So,
No.
what is your advice for our viewers today, like who parents, moms, and dads who are watching this? Like, what's your biggest advice?
Besides all the things I've said, I would just say trust your gut or your intuition or your promptings or however, whatever you believe. Trust that because you have been given the stewardship over your children. You, not the government, not the schools, not the whoever. It's your job, your stewardship, and your blessing to be able to curate your children's education. So
Mm.
you're not alone, and there's so many people out there like you, like me. I mean, we're all willing to
Oh,
share our own experience and just in the hopes that it helps others. And we, we really have everything that we need to be successful in this age and time. And so, yeah, just go for it. You're going to be okay. Don't stress.
yes. Let me ask you this. Now we're in this COVID, right, period, and a lot of parents are thinking about it. To me, I know a lot of parents, when I say this is an opportunity, they sometimes look at me like, what are you talking about? We've just gone through such a misery. What do you mean opportunity? But no, beyond that, we can look at the negative side, right? Like sometimes you have to look at, I think the education system has been shaken up with this COVID, right? And parents are coming to aware that my child is not at certain place that I thought they were getting, right? So do you see the opportunity too? Like, as you speak to more and more parents?
Yes, I do. I think the thing I'm excited about is I really hope that parents will realize that they do have that stewardship for the education of their children. And whether you outsource that to the public school or whether you homeschool them or online school or, everything in between, it really is still our stewardship. We're just using whatever resource we feel is best for them.
Mm.
And I feel like if we're more intentional about that choice going forward, that is an opportunity for growth as a society because it really is on the heads of the parents, not the government, not the school. And a lot of times we just kind of send them to school because that's the thing to do. And we don't really think about the fact that we do have a choice. We should have a choice. And I know some people don't where they live. I'm very grateful to have the choice to homeschool. And it doesn't, I mean, a lot of people are working full time and it doesn't, it can't work that way. And they don't need to feel guilty that they can't homeschool. I know a lot of moms who really would love to, but they can't for, practical and logistical reasons. So, but again, that means that your children need to be educated and you can't right now. So then what are my options? Can I do a micro school if there's that availability? Can I, do I send them to the public school? Like we are the curator. I mean, that really is what it boils down to. It's our stewardship. So I feel like if anything happens out of this, that would be such a blessing for parents to realize that it's our job. It's not someone else's job to educate our children. And we just find whatever resource they need and whatever path they need to get them to where they want to go. And then we do that.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. This has been amazing to have you, and they learned a lot from your video as well. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
What is your website before we stop here? So let's start again. So what's your website so parents can, actually check it out and take advantage of your, some of the resources you have available for them, right?
It's loveishomegrown.com. And I have answers to frequently asked questions. I have our favorite resources and curriculums, what our typical day looks like. I may be posting videos. I may be doing mentoring later, coaching and things like that. So we'll see where it goes. I just barely started the website last month. So I just really wanted to do what I could to help and lift in this situation that so many of us are in. And it's hard to feel powerless, like we can't affect change in our society as a whole, but we all can lift where we stand and do what we can in our circle of influence. And so I really felt like this is something I could do to help so many of these parents who are desperate for some kind of guidance in wanting to homeschool suddenly. And so I kind of tried to download my brain, and I'll keep adding things on there and resources as they come. And as I have time to write, but we're all doing the best that we can to help each other. And that was something that I felt like I could do. So
yes. Thank you so much. Yes, I've checked it out. It's got so much information that we can learn from. So thank you very, very much for sharing that with us. It makes a big difference when it comes from someone who just did it for that many years, right? Like you know what you're doing, so we can trust you. So thank you very much, and I will have your website on our summit page as well for parents to check it out. So thank you.
great. Thank you.